Well, welcome back to another episode of the True Hope Weekly. I'm your host, Garrett Sanchez, young adults pastor here, and I got with me Pastor Bruce again. Thank you for being back with me in the cool Jesus is True Hope studio here. And I've got some Christmas colors up. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but some green and red. So, you know, everybody's doing Christmas early this year, right? So even though it's Thanksgiving today, we want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I guess we already got some Christmas colors.
Yeah,
so.
But I think we should send you back to Christmas decorating 101.
That's true.
No holly, no, Christmas
not much.
Tree.
I actually had the sidebars red and this green, but then it looked like they were red lightsabers, and I didn't want us to look like we were like...
Oh, yeah, like Star Wars.
But, you know, then again. But we do want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. This is going to be going out on Thanksgiving. We're filming it a couple days earlier, but we want to just say happy Thanksgiving to you guys, and just want to encourage you to be grateful today. As you know, we're always grateful, but it's always great to have reminders to be grateful. One of the things that our family does, a small tradition that we do, is we go out and pick some leaves, kind of trace them, color in the box, write in some things that we're thankful for, and then cut them out and hang them on the wall. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, something
That's
that we
cool.
like doing, just to remember the things that we're thankful for in our lives. Any traditions that come to your mind, Bruce?
Well, I mean, my favorite tradition the last 6-7 years has been eating apple pie. That's pretty much a tradition every year. In fact, I asked Carmen the other day, are we on for the apple pie business? So.
That's something to be grateful for.
Actually, it started about 6-7 years ago when our daughter died. Just before that, one of the last really cool times with Esther was her and my wife Carmen baking 6 apple pies together, peeling the apples and slicing them up and the crust, and then she sort of passed them around with the family, but also we enjoy them on Thanksgiving. So and now she's doing that with the grandkids. So flour everywhere. I mean, it's a mess when I come home.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, just want to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving out there, and you know, just remembering all those who are in our lives and that God has brought to us, and how important it is to be thankful. Also, I just wanted to remind you that we do need to register for church this weekend, and so you can do that at jesusistruehope.com/downtown. But I'm thankful we get together.
Yeah. It's I need to get together, and I mean that's just something God has put within us. So some of you need to stay at home, and that's tough.
It is tough.
You're having a tough time, and I get it. But if you are coming in person, be sure to register. It'll help us out.
Yeah. And if you are online, I just want to encourage you to give a shout out in the comments. It's so helpful when there's a name behind just a number. So, you know, maybe you pull up on your TV, but pull up on a device as well. So you can just say, hey, we're here tuning in, watching with worship today. It just helps to know we're not alone. So
Yeah.
I encourage you to do that. We're going to jump into the topic of prayer today. Moving right along with our mission statement, one of the things that we focus on is being relentless in prayer. It's part of who we are, part of our vision of what we want to be. And so I just wanted to talk to Pastor Bruce a little bit about that. And one of the first questions I had, how can we know that God hears us in prayer?
Well, I mean, we have the Bible and so many stories of God hearing and answering prayer. But there are also stories there where people were wondering if God was hearing them. And so it's a common question, and it's a natural question to ask, because God doesn't just, every time we're praying, ring a little bell and say, I'm here. And so, you know, the entire Christian life is based on faith, but faith isn't blind, and it's not irrational. We have examples for thousands of years of God's hand at work, and Him saying, pray more, keep knocking, keep seeking, keep after me. I enjoy being you being persistent, and in fact, I think God actually puts us in dependent positions just so that we'll talk to Him. You know, not keep forgetting that these things have come from Him. So I think it's natural. I have had times in my life where I'm like, wow, you know, this doesn't seem like God is listening. So I think that's natural, but it's really just comes down to, do I believe there's a God, He loves me, and He's listening?
Yeah.
So,
well, and just thinking too about how He doesn't just hear my prayer, hears everybody else's prayers.
Yeah.
And, it's a puzzle piece to put that together. There's a lot of things that I don't see, I don't understand, but, there's reasons that God is doing it for somebody else, maybe, or, those different things. You were even just sharing an example from Sunday you were thinking about.
Yeah, what was it?
About the rain.
Oh, yeah. It's funny because I mentioned in the message that Elijah had prayed probably for years, seeing the decline of the nation of Israel spiritually, and thinking, and I think probably God gave him this idea, and he began to pray, Lord, keep it from raining for a long time so that your people are forced to return to you and ask for rain from you. And so there were probably people praying for rain while Elijah was praying against it. It was just kind of
I kind of think of like a football game, right? I'm always praying for the Boise State Broncos, right? But
the other side's praying too.
That's right. Yeah. Well, what encouragement would you give to somebody? So I had this conversation, and it's similar to what we were just talking about with my daughter. We were having a great little gospel conversation that just kind of happened because, she was getting in trouble, and she gets a little extra from dad when that happens. But, she ended up, we were talking, and she's like, I just have a hard time. I can't hear God's voice, And just what encouragement do you give to somebody who's kind of maybe in that season and just says, I feel like, is God listening? Does he hear my prayers? And, what do I do when it feels like I'm just talking to thin air?
Well, it's easier in hindsight to say what I would have said, what I should have said. But I think maybe I would start with a story or two about people in the Bible, famous people like Elijah. Went through this downtime where he felt like he was the only voice speaking to God, and that God wasn't really responding. Or the Apostle Paul, who said that 3 times that he fasted and prayed about God to solve and to fix this issue of this thorn in the flesh, whatever it was causing him grief and pain. And I'm sure he felt like you're not listening. So I think I would share a couple of things that this is pretty normal. But how big is God? Is he really as big as we say he is? And if he is, does he love us? And so yes. And not every prayer is he ready to answer right now. And sometimes he'll say no, or a lot of times he'll say wait. And so I think those are some fundamental concepts that we have to really own and say, God wants me to pray, I'm going to keep praying. So that I have always done that. There's been times in my life where I've, pretty much given up. I've shared the story of my son who we prayed for a decade or more, and just seemed like no response. No, God wasn't seemingly doing anything, and other people were praying. And filling in the gap, so to speak. Because I had sort of exhausted my faith at the level that it was, and now I look back and say, don't do what I did, kind of thing.
But it's great when you have a community around you who can pray for you, and we know that Jesus intercedes for us, right? The Spirit groans for us, and things that we can't even understand, and that leads right into the idea of being relentless. Which, when I think of the word relentless, it's overcoming an obstacle of some sort, in order to keep going at it, type of thing. So can you speak to that? Why is it important for us to be relentless in our prayer?
Well, I think one thing that's helped me is several years ago I discovered in the book of Revelation a picture, a symbolic explanation of what happens to our prayers. And it says the prayers of the saints were there before the throne. And I'm like, wait a minute. The prayers of the saints? So theoretically, every time we pray, every time we go to the throne of God, even when we forget, which is often and a lot, He's still got it. It's like a physical presence. If it's true that he's infinite in knowledge and he doesn't lose anything that we would not remember, then every prayer is not only logged in terms of a check mark, but the prayer is there in a sense in the Lord's mind. And so that has helped me. Like I said before, other people praying with us has helped me in the past. But all of us have these big prayers that seem like God isn't hearing us, or He's not acting, or that, like this is some kind of test. And yeah, for sure, I've had seasons like that. But Jesus told several parables about being persistent in prayer.
Yeah.
And that's something that, for whatever reason, God likes when we don't give up.
Yeah. Well, and I think about just the day-to-day, right? So you shared about some of the things that, were seasons that you were going through that made it hard to pray about maybe specific things. But even just in the day-to-day, right? Like there's so many things that vie for our attention, So how do we overcome even just those personal, obstacles? And can you speak to that? Ever feeling like, man, it's hard for me to make time for prayer, Have you struggled with that, or maybe what is,
Totally.
What's the key? What's the answer?
In fact, I'd have to say, of all the statements in our purpose statement, our mission statement, this relentless in prayer is probably the one that's most aspirational. In other words, one that we really desperately want to be a part of who we are at the core. But we're not there yet. We're on the way. Yeah. And certainly that's true for me. And so, the daily prayer, just keep, I think it's easy to go into the same wording all the time, the same phraseology all the time. And I think some of the ways that keeps it fresh for me is say, how can I reword this? What is the core of what my ask is? What is it really that I'm after here? Yeah.
I picked up recently the Valley of Vision, and it's a bunch of like prayers that have been written by different Puritan pastors, and was like brought into this book, and man, it's so cool to read through it, because it just reminds me of like, I fall into the same patterns of my prayers, and then I can hear somebody else who's really kind of just like thought through it and took some time to write it down. And it's like, man, I never thought about voicing it like that, and when you do, it changes it, and so that's been a cool thing for me to go through. So I would encourage anybody to pick that up, Valley of Vision. And it's Puritan style prayer, so there's a whole lot of woe is me.
Is it a new book or old book?
It's an old book from like the 60s or something. The pastor kind of collated a bunch of prayers, so it's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But back to your original, I stumble forward when it comes to prayer, and have for my entire Christian life. And the things that really bring me back are crises. You're going through things, and you just now become relentless suddenly. Yep. When everything's good, you're on the top of the mountain, it just sort of slowly, ebbs away, and then it comes back. And so in a lot of ways, God allows these things that we go through to cause us to become intimate with Him again, and to pound on the door, so to speak. And so, I would say keep stumbling forward. Don't give up. Be persistent. Be totally honest. Ask yourself, what am I praying? Why am I praying this? What does God feel and think about what I'm asking? I think we always have to say, is this just a selfish prayer, or is this really for the kingdom or for others? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to when I've been desperate to God in prayer for something that was really kingdom oriented and related. That's when I saw Him working in the most powerful ways. So just continuing to be, like, what is it that God wants me to have my eyes on? What does He want to burden my heart right now with? And is it something other than what I've been going to Him with in prayer? So that is kind of saying like prayer changes us.
Yeah, it really does. And I also want to say, you can pray something very fervently and persistently and in faith, and God still says wait, or not yet, or never. And so there are things in my life I look back and I've seen that God has been faithful, but He hasn't always answered the way that I was asking. And but at the end, it changes you, and you begin to see that God He cares. Yeah. And He's with you. Even with my son, as I mentioned earlier, while he wasn't answering the way that I wanted to and the timing that I wanted, there were little things along the way that he said, I'm listening. I'm still here. I'm still involved. And that was very encouraging.
Well, one prayer we both can be praying this Thanksgiving is that the apple pies wouldn't affect our waistline at all. Just I keep putting that one out there.
Pray for miracles.
Yeah, just be relentless about it and just keep eating the apple pie. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of True Hope Weekly. We'll see you next time.